I'll call the meeting of the special meeting of the Banff Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission to order. Would you please call the roll?
Bill Brown,
Here.
Annie Adams, Leonardo Kovis, Kara Dudek,
Here.
Cynthia Hoyle,
Present.
Audrey Ishii,
Here.
Susan Jones, Jeff Marino,
Here.
Craig Schonkweiler,
Here.
Nancy Westcott,
Here.
Lily Wilcock.
Here.
We have quorum.
Okay, thank you. So we're here to set goals and hear presentations about the bicycle pedestrian master plan. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak before we get started? Okay, seeing none. Do we need to do introductions or anything, or who's going to take the? Are you going to do it, Gabe? Okay.
Yeah, I think we can. I mean, you all did your roll call, so at least we'll introduce ourselves, and maybe if the members of the public want to identify themselves, that'd be good. Yes, and the staff. I'm Gabe Lewis, transportation planner at the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission and project planner for this plan. Go ahead.
I'm Rita Black. I'm the Planning and Community Development Director for RPC.
Lori Morgan, also a transportation planner, working with Gabe on the plan.
And then city staff, we've got Craig and Kevin Garcia.
Yep, Kevin Garcia, planner.
There are two public people want to. You don't have to. I can't make you, I guess.
I'm Miles Churchill. I'm a resident of Urbana and also a student of the urban planning department at U of I.
Same here, Omar Al-Majdu, and also a resident for a few years, and I'm doing a master's in urban planning.
Great. Thanks for coming. And Annie Adams is here.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm on BPAC.
Does someone want to pass this down to her? Okay. So, looking at, I guess, sort of following the agenda that we had sent out, we just wanted to briefly touch on two items before we talk about goals. One is the public input report from all the input done in the spring, and we had developed the report and city staff gave us comments from BPAC on the draft, so we incorporated those, and I just wanted to try and, yes.
Do we have a copy of this?
It was sent out.
Did we get, was it sent out to us?
It was sent out, and I
Okay.
believe it was, wasn't it
Posted to the
posted to the
website
website?
also.
It was posted to the web.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a link in your email, if I recall. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
So, were there any questions before I just briefly cover that we addressed kind of some of the comments? All right. I know that. So the first one comment was wanting to see where input was received from. As you may be aware, we had multiple neighborhood meetings and workshops, as well as we were at the market and some other community events. So this just shows where how many walking preference surveys were received from each neighborhood, and then a dozen from Champaign and a couple from other neighboring communities. That just is there. Let's see. Going back to regular view. And then there were comments or requests for seeing the actual streets that were listed for some of the multi-part questions. So question 7, think of a road in Urbana that concerns you. Now all those streets where there are word clouds, the number of responses are listed there. And the same here for questions 9, 10, and 11, and 12. And then most of the rest of, most of the rest is in the tables. So the beginning was to try to show more graphic information for easier consumption, and the rest is the table. So asking where people think of specific locations for different issues like speed of traffic, amount of traffic, all those specific streets and how many times they're listed are listed here. And then at the end, we have maps included now that show the trip activity maps. So first were the comments. We had area comments, you have positive and neutral comments, and then negative comments, because some of those were actually, some areas had comments for both. Linear comments, and then point comments, and then all those specific comments are listed in the tables above. And then we mapped the walking trips, and then we also did that. It's broken down by neighborhood, so you can just see here. We did it by block, so the highest for a particular block was 15, so really the thicker lines show where there were more walking trips cited within our activity. So downtown Urbana, Meadowbrook Park, and then actually Learman Avenue, Aspen Court area, getting to and from destinations had the highest number of trips. And then West Urbana too, I would say. And like I said, the following maps are the neighborhood maps. So with that, with the comments addressed, then we plan to put this information on our website that city staff can link to, and we can share with everyone to show the results of all the public input. Any questions before we?
Could you remind me on the number of walking trips? Was that just everybody? How was that asked? What was the question?
The walking trips?
Yeah.
We had the large poster size maps that we had on tables and stuff, and we asked people to walk their or mark their typical walking trips.
So nobody could mark more than one trip. If they did it like 5 times a week, it would still be one mark on there.
Right, like the route would be, but they could mark multiple routes. Yeah.
With the further digesting of this data, is there anything that came out of it that you didn't know before, perhaps, with these additional questions?
With the addition, well, one thing I know we're talking about with city staff is more problems with like the north-south streets, I guess. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah. It was surprising to us that we found out that many people, when they were asked about problems, they listed north-south streets, Lincoln Avenue being the main one, and then Race and Vine were the 3 main streets that they listed as problematic, and only University Avenue was the only east-west street that was listed. I was surprised that Florida didn't come up, or Main Street. I was surprised by Main Street, that there were no negative comments about Main Street or Florida Avenue or Windsor or Washington.
I put Washington in like 5, everything I filled out over and over again.
Probably you were the only one. Because
That's fair.
yeah, when we group all the comments together, then it was mainly the north-south and University Avenue east-west. Other than that, I was surprised by that.
So could you tell from the north-south streets, the Race doesn't stick out to me except the intersection of University. Could it be like one intersection kind of triggering?
It was a significant number of people mentioning Race.
Street?
Race and
Well, just in general,
In general.
crossing Race. I mean,
At
crossing Vine and
University.
crossing Lincoln, I think were
both
higher.
of those locations.
Were higher, but after that was Race, which was surprising.
No,
Yeah, I mean,
not if you crossed there.
there's a lot of
It's pretty
There's a lot
unpleasant.
of parks. I mean, a lot of parked cars on both sides of the visibility's poor, but it's like a small enough street that you feel comfortable.
Exactly.
So then all of a sudden you're like, I'm never going to cross this lovely little tree-lined street.
But were the locations they mentioned that were hard for crossing were Race and what?
Oh, I don't recall exactly, Cynthia.
You'd probably just have to go look in the
Because
report.
Race and
'cause there's
University
a
is
lot
the
of-
first thing.
Oh, yeah, Race and
The rest of the
University,
street I
yes.
don't have issues
Definitely.
with, but Race and University is a very ugly intersection to cross on foot.
Well, racing in Florida just at, 5 and at 8, busy traffic times. It's
Racing,
intimidating.
Racing Washington, didn't we have pedestrian municipalities?
We had one,
We
yeah.
had one, yeah. And Champaign County Bikes posted a video of cars for like in 30 minutes not stopping at stop signs there.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Well, it's an offset intersection. Odd configuration.
Race.
All right.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. So then just for our next item with existing conditions, we just wanted to ask if there were any comments. I will say what you got in the packet was a draft report, and that information will go into the full draft plan, but we just wanted to see if there was any questions or comments right now, and if you have any after this meeting too, you can send them our way.
Out of curiosity, are you planning on sending this to the campus master plan committee? And we're wrapping things up?
No, at
That
this
Wayne
time.
Avenue is important to talk about for that. And university is heavily featured in the campus master plan right now.
I mean, what I can say, like I said, I'm gonna post the public input report online tomorrow, so that will be publicly available, and that can be shared with anybody if they're interested in looking at that. But we're not.
But beyond that, we will not be sharing anything because nothing is final.
Right.
So when will this plan be final?
We're going to be going into next year, like with the plan. The draft plan should be. We're planning to have it prepared in the winter, and then there'll be like a 30-day public comment period, and it'll come to this commission, and it'll come to the city council for review and discussion.
6 to 9 months from now.
Yeah, I mean, the total project length was 18 months is what it was estimated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we started on it in February.
March, I could say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we're tracking right in line with what our projected progress was. It's a long process in order to do this. We're taking our time and trying to do it right.
And just, this might be off topic, but when the plan is finalized, it'll be like, is it going to be like systematic, like we want to slow traffic throughout the city of Urbana, and this is how we're planning on doing it with like bump outs and bike lanes and tree plantings, or is it going to be just like only specifically a hot spot, a hot spot, a hot spot? Like, is that what, do we know what direction the whole thing's going, or?
Probably will be both, because there will be policy recommendations, and the policy recommendations can include policies for the whole city. And there will be also spot recommendations for those locations that we identify as highly problematic. Then we'll have both components.
Are we being guided by the bike master plan goal of Vision Zero for fatalities?
Basically, we'll be leading on that direction. And there is, we'll be discussing today a safety pillar that the base is that.
For future planning efforts, I think it would be helpful if we were able to get the draft documents a week in advance, if possible, so that we have more time to take a look at them, because getting it on Friday and having the meeting Tuesday evening is pretty quick turnaround for people to, especially since Monday was a holiday for a lot of people. So if we could do that in the future, I think that would help us have digested the information more thoroughly. So in the future, that would be very helpful. Because I feel like I haven't digested all of this, and that I feel like is important to, especially existing conditions to the goal development.
Yeah, and there's a lot here. I don't know if it would help me a whole lot to have it a week earlier. I still probably wouldn't be able to get through all of it. But, I mean, and for people that, the public, this is just the first part.
We'll be
this
putting
was
it
the
out.
public input
Mhm.
report. That
Mhm.
They had public meetings in all the different neighborhoods, and they put this report
Mhm.
together. And then we'll be talking about the existing conditions. For this one, I talked to Nancy as she came in, but I thought about it earlier. A lot of people in parts of the ward I represent are worried about lighting issues, and that's really one of the blocks for people walking at night. Not so much for safety concerns as far as crime, but just because of obstructions that they
Yeah,
don't want to go
can't
over on
see
the sidewalk
things in
or
the
the street,
sidewalk.
things like that.
Yep.
I'm wondering if any of our questions would have elicited that kind of response on concerns from those issues.
We actually were, it was interesting to find that people had comments both ways about lighting. Some people did want more lighting and some people did not want more lighting. They didn't want to have they wanted to maintain a dark sky, and they didn't.
Those are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that just speaks to the diversity of the amount of, some parts of urban or residential areas have so much lighting.
They have bad
Bill,
lighting,
your,
yeah.
your area has very little lighting.
A lot of it, yeah, between Washington and Florida.
And a
Yeah.
lot of unevenness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't.
Sketchy sidewalk situation.
And I can say, I didn't know that if we wanted to be an astronomy city, that increasing lighting for pedestrians would not hurt our future goal of becoming an astronomy city. I didn't know that.
It doesn't have to.
Right, so I mean, a lot of people who maybe commented, I like the low lighting, and I totally like the low lighting, but I totally get that you can't see and it doesn't encourage you to leave your house, and, but I do like the lighting at the scale. It's a human scale now.
Yeah.
It's not, when you get taller lights, you get faster cars, you get more speeding, you get Washington Avenue. So, lower lights keep things, at a different pace. But yeah, so that I think is an important narrative to let people know, if that's something we're aiming for, that we should, for migrating birds and saving a variety of other things.
I have a question on existing conditions. There is a cluster of crashes with pedestrians shown at Lincoln, Ohio, I think it is. Where did that go now?
Iowa. Lincoln and Iowa to be the one that
That's where
really
the crossing
fixed the
Yeah, but it's
Where did it
the
go?
connection through the intersection is still
frightening.
frightening.
It got
for
away
sure.
from me. I
We took it
enlarged
every
it and now
other
it
day.
disappeared.
For fun.
You what?
What page is that on?
Yeah, no, I
Is
get
this
it.
Is that the graphic, Cynthia?
Yeah, I was looking.
That's it, yes.
Okay. And there's actually an
Here we
inset.
are. Yeah. Well, it shows it being Ohio. It does not show it being Iowa.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Let me zoom out to the.
That's why I was
legend.
asking.
There's
Because
a big
that,
sorority there.
Ohio.
oh, is
5.
that?
5.
Yeah,
There's
okay.
a big sorority.
Yeah, the city's
And they're
aware of
moving
that
out.
location.
Well, and we don't need to fix the street. Just
Is that the one that is slated to be converted?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, we're studying Ohio, actually that corridor from Pennsylvania. But Ohio and Iowa are primary
Okay.
focal points.
Okay. Yeah, I was surprised by that one. Well, Nevada is where we had a fatality. I guess the fatality that occurred that was sort of off-road is not really,
Oh, that was on Lincoln.
That was just-
I know that was on Lincoln, but where does it show up on here?
That might be in that cluster.
Probably is in the cluster that is there.
It doesn't have a triangle around it. That's why I'm confused.
You're talking.
Where they ran off, the guy ran
Yeah.
off the
Yeah.
sidewalk.
It was actually down.
I thought it was farther down and I don't see it.
Yeah,
That's why I was, another reason I was a little confused.
it was closer to Michigan.
That's what
Yeah.
Yeah, the
that's
diamonds.
what I thought.
The diamond?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was there a timeline for the
It was
diamonds?
2010, but
Well,
It's
It would
2010
have
to
been-
2015.
It would have been
2011.
before this, possibly.
Yeah.
So you looked at a zone of like, what, 5 years? Is that?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Including
Okay, so it
2015.
might have been
before
pre.
2010?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did not.
I think that
We
would have been
can-
just before the
Was that
5-year.
before or
range.
Okay,
after?
okay, okay,
Yeah,
That
because
was
it's
after.
5 years,
It was
2011 to
after.
2015. That.
okay. You know, I think I personally think it'd be helpful to have a 10-year window because it gives us more information. If it's possible I don't think it's too hard to throw that additional 5 years in, is it?
We'll have to redo all the maps and all the analysis.
You can't just do one that says 10 years?
We have to go back on
You
the
have to get all the
database
data.
and collect all the data.
Okay.
I will tell you, when we do analysis in the engineering division, we look at a 5-year horizon.
Yeah, I know it's very typical to look
Yeah.
at 5 years.
I thought the University Avenue corridor study was mentioned 10 years on the, maybe it was,
In Florida and Philo, where a roundabout would have made a significant difference in the number of crashes, is also a high crash location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always has been.
Is the document you're looking at, Cynthia,
The
was that,
existing conditions document.
so was that included in the email? I
Well,
got
see,
on
I think
Friday?
that people missed it. In the email that we got on Friday, there was a link to the documents, and I do not think that we knew what was in there.
Yeah, I was trying to, I got two, I'm looking at it now, I got two PDFs, one of an agenda that I opened up and one of a UPMD plan.
Mhm.
And what are you looking at?
Existing conditions.
And that's in my email here?
When you go to that link, there's 3 documents.
If I go to the city's VPAC
The
webpage?
link that was included in the email.
All right.
Yeah, I think maybe even, well, having it early and also having a listing of what was in there for us to review. I suspect for a lot of us that it sort of just flew by that, because usually what we get in documents are the agenda and the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
well, yeah, if I don't see an attachment on my email, I'm like,
Or like, click
cannot
on this,
open it.
please click, this is the
Well,
existing.
these are
scope
big
of this house.
documents, so attaching
Yeah.
them is hard.
Yeah, don't attach it.
But say, you'll find the following documents in, and listing them, please review for the meeting, would perhaps have flagged people's attention.
Going
Yeah.
back to that comment on the time period, so the University Avenue corridor study was 2003 through 7. So we would be leaving this gap of, from 8 to 10 or 11, 12 or whatever. Whereas if we just do the whole 10 years, since then that would help with looking at trends, or else have the 5 and 5 year.
We'll see.
We
if
could have maybe 5 and 5, not change the map, but just add a map.
We'll
the
see if
previous
we
5.
can do it because
Yeah.
it's a lot of work to put all the data together.
I wouldn't want to
So
redo
otherwise
all
I-
of the maps, for
Yeah,
sure.
I
would.
feel like we're missing that period in between, which is kind of important for trend.
So there were no pedestrian accidents at Lincoln in Florida? That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think there is many people crossing there as there are further north.
Yeah, that's
Or in
true.
Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, if you live around there, you're
There's all
pretty
those
close.
joggers.
Lots of
too.
people go across at Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Pretty
Mhm.
good.
There was a
Visibility
fatality
here.
in Pennsylvania.
Anyway.
Some girl who lived in my dorm died there when the driver,
That's the one we were just
Pennsylvania,
discussing, I
Lincoln.
think.
oh,
That
he
was-
ran off the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, we're saying, why we were wondering why it wasn't in
Yeah.
here, and we think it was for, right before this,
5-year cutoff?
yep. So,
Do you know what year it was?
well, no, I don't remember.
It would have been my freshman year, which was 2013.
I thought it was.
So that's not
maybe
5 years ago.
Yeah, maybe we should double check
I'm just
that
also
one.
confused
Yeah, we'll
about the
look into
Washington
I
thing,
was
because I had
wondering
many
if it is
people.
that
I know,
one,
that it's just
Lincoln.
in the wrong
That
place.
one.
So I don't,
Right
so
there.
I'm looking,
Yeah.
just looking.
Probably is on the wrong place. I think that's
Yeah.
the one.
Yeah.
About where police reported.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where it
And
There's-
that's part of the problem, that the person was identified as drunk or whatever. There
Yeah.
is when it went out, the first attempt was there, then the fatalities, according to the police report, is on Nevada and not where it actually happened.
They
this
put
is
a
likely,
street,
is what I'm
yeah.
saying. Yeah.
It's that fatality at Nevada.
So,
Mhm.
I need some more explanation on the condition scores. So is 100 good?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because it doesn't say that, does it? I didn't see where you said, this is good. And so, did I not?
It may not, and I'll make sure to clarify that if it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Let me see, there's a couple maps.
One assumes that red is not good,
Right.
but I wanted to ask to clarify that.
Sure.
And this was based on the data that was collected in the,
Sidewalk inventory and
Sidewalk
assessment.
inventory.
Mhm.
okay, all right. So we have a lot of work to do. Now, but in terms of the condition score, it says it takes into consideration all of these things, including the ADA compliance score. And yeah, that's very important. However, I think an argument could be made that when 90% of the public finds a sidewalk usable, it's still in better shape than. What I'm wondering is how much is that skewing it? Because the sidewalk, if it's in pretty good shape, but it's just got a bad slant or something, does that then knock it down into the red category?
Not necessarily.
Okay,
Not necessarily.
okay, all right.
Well, you had it rated both on the structural condition of it and the ADA compliance,
Exactly.
right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
The condition score doesn't take compliance into consideration. Those are two separate scores, but there are some overlapping elements.
Exactly.
Because the sidewalk condition scores, it says, the sidewalk condition scores take into consideration surface condition, vertical faults, and cracked panels.
And the ADA
Is a separate,
is a separate.
It's a separate-
okay, all
But there's
right.
some overlap,
Which is a
like
whole
I
lot
said.
more red. All right, I got
Yeah.
you.
But there
The
is.
offset's gonna affect the ADA.
Yeah, there are
score.
some elements.
Sure,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
I have a quick comment. I find it interesting that when there isn't a sidewalk, the roads seem very, they're light gray. It's not a big deal, but I feel like those maybe are some of the
That
should
we
be a
don't
higher
show where there's
priority,
not
you know?
one.
We have a map with the
Yeah.
gaps.
Okay. Guess.
Yeah, there's a gap map.
So I'm seeing red is bad, green is good.
Yes.
I'm not red-green colorblind, but I don't know if those would be seeable,
Well, they would not be someone's
or
colorblind.
distinguishable. So maybe different color scheme. I don't know, something that's colorblind compliant. I don't think that's the real term, but
What are our obligations in that regard? It's really hard. As someone who's had to deal with this in other plans, it is very hard to design a map.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
works for people who have red-green color blindness.
Yeah, because when you put all the colors together plus the background, it's really difficult
It
to
is.
find contrasting colors.
yeah, and to me it seems
It gave
natural.
it some-
It's
yeah.
like red and green
I
seems
think
so,
I got it.
so
Okay.
different.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
that I'm
And that's the map of the missing
All the
sidewalks.
gaps,
All
okay.
the gaps on the network.
Okay.
So red, sidewalk not constructed, and then you have the sidewalks waived, and then other missing sidewalks outside of the city's jurisdiction.
One way to help with that is to use a pattern of some sort.
It's more difficult. When you combine the different patterns, it's kind of
Well,
impossible
in this map,
to
it might
see.
be helpful because you've really
ADA
only got
Other ADA compliance.
primarily the red and the purple are the ones that we are really seeing the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of places where the sidewalks are waived, mainly like the frontage roads around the interstate.
Industrial subdivision.
Yeah,
An
a
industrial
Sidewalks on the interstate.
subdivision, exactly.
little bit here. Here.
Well, yeah, but those locations up there on North Cunningham, we have a lot of pedestrian traffic walking along there.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
reds are
Are gaps.
missing, right.
Yeah,
mhm.
Yeah.
but
And
But
that's
those
under
are going to be
construction.
replaced, yeah.
They're-
I mean, they're gonna be put in, I guess I should say.
It's in the planning phase still. But
Yeah,
I think it's scheduled for construction this year or next
Mhm.
year.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
They do have some of the preliminary design done on it. I've seen some of the ramp.
Yay. Okay.
Any other questions right now?
As far as like projects like that we have scheduled,
Mhm.
are you going to try to include those somehow in existing conditions, or is it existing just right now?
Well, we do have to cut it off at a certain point.
Yeah.
It'd probably be good to have the 2017 year as like the cutoff.
You'd want it built, I believe, before you would include it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Could we put some of those in the appendix, or make an appendix or something saying condition or projects planned for the next 5 years? We have a 5-year capital improvement plan.
Yeah, and I mean that information would go into our recommendations too.
And
In
implementation.
the implementation. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's interesting to me, when you look at the ADT, we really don't have super high volume streets. So the streets that feel really uncomfortable to us, that leads me to feel that speed is more of the problem than volume. And that's why places like University Avenue feel really scary to cross, is that it's the speed of the vehicles more than the volume.
Well, especially with the sidewalk next to the roadway
Mhm.
with the high-speed traffic,
Mhm.
that
And
just
distance.
makes it worse.
It's wide.
It's wide, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Super.
Well, because it's wide, that's why people go fast. So.
And there's separation between sidewalk and the road. That was part of the survey, so
Yep.
we have those locations
So
pointed out.
the draft campus master plan, and I'm 98% sure that this is going to go through. It's going to be kept in the plan. University Avenue they really are going to be pushing to increase pedestrian and transit access to University Avenue. It's particularly between Goodwin and Carl Hospital, and so that's something I hope we're taking into consideration, is that these are improvements that hopefully we can meet the challenge of.
Well, why there? It's not really campus. Goodwin to
There are lots of
Carl.
students
Carl,
living.
Yeah, they're going to be pushing Carl as more like a research center and part of the
The new
medical
school.
school.
It is part of the campus.
It will
Yeah.
be, yeah.
And there's a ton of students living now on University Avenue.
I think it should be. I think it should be looked at from right.
Well,
on.
where are they planning
Absolutely.
to lobby for the?
Oh, I didn't write the
improvements?
plan, for sure.
Are they
Yeah.
planning to contact IDOT,
Yeah,
or
that's on IDOT streets.
how would they be doing this since it's an IDOT road? State Highway 45, the
Well,
most dangerous
I
highway.
mean,
will-
obviously,
they will-
that
they
would
will
be
have
my
to.
job, so once it's published. But really, I hope that we're able to coordinate making University Avenue. It's obviously a problem, and there's going to be more and more students wanting to walk there.
My understanding is that the campus will propose that on the right of way, then will be mainly widening the sidewalk toward the campus area and not touching the street at all. It's just dealing with the right of way and providing a separation and
But they
widening
still
the
have to
sidewalk.
cross it.
Somehow
Yeah.
they have to get across.
There's
Like
that
one
little issue.
tunnel. Yeah.
That
So
was
they're-
my understanding with the
So they're
main
not
one.
planning to do anything on University Avenue?
The current concept is to
Widen.
widen the sidewalk, cut down 13 very old trees.
No, but I mean the
Yeah.
university, what was the university?
That's University Avenue.
No, but I thought the university
I'm
was
saying-
planning to do, not.
No, the university's planning just to see more push more pedestrian traffic to University Avenue and transit traffic,
Ah, okay,
which causes a problem because we obviously see.
okay, I see.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a growth in cars, and we're seeing a growth in pedestrian and bikes and transit. And so there's like a conflict.
And
Yeah.
I have another question. So how did you determine streetlight density? Did you count the number of poles? How do you know did you get information on lumens or?
That was based on polls. For the data that we have is just the locations of the lighting. And we don't have sort of the type of fixture in order to be able to calculate lumens.
Okay, all right, gotcha. All right. And the safe walking routes are all the elementary and middle school routes that we have been doing. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And those we've actually been looking at for a number of
Right.
years.
Yeah, there's a quantitative analysis
Okay.
to that.
Mm-hmm.
Takes into account a lot of these factors.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
For
Yeah.
destination density, that's just number of destinations.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't try to estimate how many people were going to each destination or anything like that?
No, the data that we have from the public participation isn't really statistically meaningful in that way, so it's just about, showing sort of land use patterns, not about usage patterns.
This seems like it might have underestimated campus a little bit because it's more spread out or something. There's a lot of people crossing Lincoln Avenue that doesn't seem to come across in that map.
So that map just said, that's just people who actually showed up and filled out a survey, right?
This has nothing to do
No.
with the public
No.
participation. This is just
No.
sort
This is
of
just
raw,
destinations.
data that
Measure.
is mapped.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got you sort of go through and list the main kinds of destinations we know people want to access, and shopping, lawyers, etc.
Kickapoo Rail Trail.
I don't see, is church on there? Or like,
Religious institutions.
I don't think it
I
is.
think we did include.
We didn't include that because that's only for the weekends,
Mhm.
basically.
Right, okay.
Yeah. The focus for these destinations were a little bit more on sort of what do you need to successfully live day to day, access to employment, access to grocery stores, looking at it more as a utilitarian
Not
mode.
recreation
Yeah.
Mm.
destinations
Park
or
Center, I think.
yeah, because it doesn't have.
PPD's in
Yeah, that's one that it would be helpful to take a look at because, as you know, the studies are showing more kids are hit going to parks than going to school. So that, and given some of the locations of our major parks that are on the north side of University and the south side of Windsor, that is an issue for the community that perhaps we need to examine.
And now at the end of Main Street.
Yep, and the rail trail, yeah, is going to be another one, is it?
Props to have put paint on the ground there.
They did some fast work to get what we have out there, and that did help a lot.
It's made a big difference.
Yeah, and having the signal timing on High Cross Road.
I got some compliments
Adjusted.
from students about that, by the way.
Yeah, nobody has complained
Yeah.
about crossing there, which says to me they don't realize that they've got special timing. They just know that they feel safe.
Oh,
Crossing.
I had students walk up to me who noticed an improvement because they like to get off the bus at the Urbana Walmart and go to the Aldi.
Oh, so they had been crossing there before.
Yes,
so they knew.
absolutely. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
this little like group of young engineers like came swarming on me saying, "I get Aldi! Ah! It's not scary. I'm not running into a ditch."
That's good.
Yeah, it was great.
I adjusted it pretty quick.
Yeah, that was head spinning fast for
Yeah,
IGOT.
within a week. It was
Yeah.
done.
In a week.
Yeah.
Imagine. You should send them
Well, and they also put up
the signs.
additional signs.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was great.
Otherwise, they'd probably just think like, no one cares. It's like, no, we really care.
Yeah.
Is there
No,
anything
it's a
else in
great
existing conditions you all wanted to point out as relevant for our consideration?
Not at this
I
time.
can't think of anything, but
Yeah.
as Gabe said, feel free to send comments and questions to
Okay,
us.
okay,
That's the idea.
all right, all right. I will, in fact, share that MTD. Now that I think about it, we don't have one here that shows transit. Do we?
We do, we have
Yeah.
transit density.
There it is.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Stops.
I skipped over it. Okay. So,
We have trips per week and stops.
oh, but it
location
shows
stops.
trips, but not necessarily access to. That's what I was.
We'll just stop locations, right?
It's
Yeah.
stop
It's
locations and then, yeah, the number of times a bus stops at the location during the week. And then we look at access in those ways.
And then relates that to the existing pedestrian
Right. I
facility.
guess
Right.
I was wondering about the infrastructure access to those stops.
Well, we have the
you have-
existing
you have the
sidewalks
existing
right on
sidewalk.
here. These are the red.
Yeah.
Or, well, we have a couple. A light blue and a red for the sidewalk.
So the red's missing?
It might be, well, there is, it looks like a pink.
Trouble seeing that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's easier to see printed than it is on that screen.
Okay, okay.
There might be,
I'll get MTD to check.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
have them look at that.
People who deal with the stops
Mm-hmm.
regularly.
Yeah, I think Evan's seen this map. I talked to him about it a little bit, but
Okay.
I think it's a good selection of things that we should be thinking about. Kind of a good way to spur our discussion and enough detail, I think, to drill down and get some more information out, when we need it. So I don't think it needs a lot of changes. I don't know about anybody else.
I'll also say this is the information we presented at all the spring outreach events in the spring. Spring in the spring. Yeah, so this was, what we had, stuff on boards and things like that. These are some of the factors that we looked at. All right.
Does anybody think of anything additional you'd like to see in there?
I feel like the information that we had that compiled those maps that you had in the sidewalk inventory of the location, the heat maps that showed where most people were that had to use transit because income, disabilities, etc. I really feel like that those would be helpful to have included in here. You've already got those. We might as well add them in. I feel like that's really critical information for us to help prioritize some of the needs. I thought that was really good because we had that hot spot over around Philo and Florida, and then around Lincoln Square, where we have a lot of older people and a variety of other people that need to be able to get around without driving.
Yeah.
'Cause I think you looked at car ownership and you had a
Yes.
whole array.
We look at disability using the data from
Right here.
the passes, MTD passes. Is that?
Yeah.
I thought.
We look
Yeah,
at
here's the.
the
Disability.
generators.
Disability seem to be pretty close to seniors, except they're different kinds of maps, but I bet there's a lot of overlap there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they did that one great map in the sidewalk inventory that put all of those factors into one and then highlighted the highest density locations,
Yeah.
which I thought was a really great map.
Okay, so we want to go on to the planning
Pillars.
pillars, goals, and objectives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our handout.
Yes. So, what you would have received, what you did receive, hopefully on Friday, is what we're going to talk about. It's part of this handout. The first page, though, is something we prepared to give a framework background of what we're actually talking about. Give some definitions. So, goals and objectives, I'm going to read from this, are intended to provide clear and specific direction for improving and increasing walking in Urbana. So we're going to kind of go from the top down. What we call a planning pillar, or can be called a theme, is the subject of a goal. An example of that is safety. The goal itself is the end state that will be brought about by implementing the Urbana Pedestrian Master Plan. So I've taken an example that you'll see as we go through from the Urbana Bicycle Master Plan, which was to provide a bicycle network that is safe and attractive for all users. Then objectives are sub-goals that help organize the implementation of the plan into measurable and manageable parts. And hopefully you've heard of the SMART objectives. If not, I'm here to remind you that the objectives need to be developed according to the SMART acronym, which stands for specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time-bound. So an example from the bike plan is to act to keep the number of annual bicycle crash fatalities in Urbana at 0 between 2016 and 2021. And then performance measures help agencies track the progress of each objective over time. So in this case, the example, the performance measure is the number of bike crash fatalities. Then strategies help agencies reach the stated goals and objectives. So one of the strategies from that objective was to educate motorists on the rules of the road regarding bicyclists, utilizing law enforcement of traffic laws. And then finally, we identify the responsible parties, which are the entities who have or may have the ability to implement strategies and in turn the goals and objectives. So in this example case, it's not only the city of Urbana, but because there are other streets and areas owned by the University of Illinois. We also have Champaign County Bikes and Urbana School District on the education side of that example. So any questions before we move on to some more background information? Okay, so this part, this 4-page document is what you would have received in the packet, and then the last page, the only difference is at the end we have elaborated a little bit. So we wanted to bring you up to speed on what's out there, what's been approved. We looked at 6 recent local plans that are either tied to walking or Urbana or both, and then also some of the more frequently cited comments from the public input. So we have the 2014 Champaign County Greenways and Trails Plan. We pulled out the themes or planning pillars from each plan, and these are listed here, so I'll just read them off as we go.
Dave, are these ranked?
No, they're not ranked.
Okay.
Yeah. And the 3rd page actually just lists, well, I'll get to that part, but it compiles everything.
Yep. Okay.
So we have accessibility, connectivity, safety, user-friendliness, efficiency, mobility, convenience, natural environment, coordination, implementation, education, promotion, quality of life and health. The next plan is the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District Community Health Improvement Plan, which is called the I-Plan. And the 4 priorities were access to care, behavioral health, obesity, and violence. So obesity really relates mostly to what we're dealing with here. The Long-Range Transportation Plan, known as Sustainable Choices 2040, we have 8 planning pillars, which are safety, security, balanced development, multimodal connectivity, accessibility, affordability, healthy neighborhoods, and resilient economy. We looked at the 2016 Urbana Park District Trails Master Plan, which again shows accessibility, connectivity, safety, user-friendliness, education, natural environment, coordination, and implementation. The 5th plan is the Prairie Campus Safe Routes to School Plan for Dr. Williams School, and that only had 3 goals, and then there were 2 themes of increasing the number of safe walking routes to school and encouragement. And then from the Urbana Bicycle Master Plan 2016, we have safety, connectivity, convenience, education, equity, implementation, and then visionary concepts. And then from the 2017 Urbana Pedestrian Master Plan public input, the most frequently cited subjects, we try to go through the comments and then, kind of summarize them, give them some subjects. So people talked about crossings, and these are just listed alphabetically, maintenance, major streets, neighborhoods, no sidewalks, parks, safety, sidewalks, and streets. So page 3. Yeah.
Gabe, was
Yes.
the 2014 Active Choices Champlain County Greenways and Trails Plan, was that adopted by the county, or was that a document that was adopted by RPC?
It was RPC.
It was adopted by RPC and by several agencies
Right.
Okay.
that were part of the county greenways and trails plan.
And I guess I'll point out, if there's another extremely relevant plan that should be looked at with this, or maybe something like council goals, then that can be included in this, but we can go over the information we have here, and we're just trying to give you background as a launching point for this goal setting process. All right, page 3. So this combined all the goals, or planning pillars, excuse me. So they're either listed as pillars, priorities, subjects, or themes. And there are 33 total, and then we ranked it by how many times, how many plans they were mentioned in. So safety was in 5 of the 6 plans, it's the highest. Connectivity or multimodal connectivity was in 4 of the 6. And then 3 of the 6 had accessibility, education, and implementation. 2 of the 6 had convenience, coordination, health or healthy neighborhoods, the natural environment, and user friendliness. And then everything else was listed in one plan. So the last page, what we did is we took 7 of those that were from really the top of that list. Actually 9, but we combined a couple. And this is the new information. So the note, says these planning pillars are subject to discussion at this meeting tonight and are only intended to be a starting point for the creation of planning pillars, goals, and objectives. And what we did is added some sub-bullets just to explain what we're talking about when we use these terms for this context. And that's also, if people have comments on that, we can talk about that too. So we have safety, when we're talking about reducing the risk of crashes between pedestrians and vehicles. Accessibility and connectivity, both talking about getting to destinations and talking about the infrastructure within the pedestrian network. Convenience and user friendliness. So convenience, we mean that, talking about making walking an easier transportation choice. And then user friendliness regarding the features that improve walking or attract people to walk. Education, not only for pedestrians, but also bicyclists and motorists. Health, regarding increased physical activity and reduced obesity. Sustainability, regarding the natural environment and air quality. And then equity, planning for all neighborhoods and people in Urbana, but particularly people who walk out of necessity. So that's the background information we have. And we are obviously not going to be creating every goal, objective, performance measure tonight, but as you're aware, this meeting is to talk about planning pillars and what direction we want to start to go with creating the goals and all the information associated with it.
Could you say something like creating connections between safe, low stress, and interesting streets for walking in Urbana?
Maybe.
I can say it again.
Yeah.
Creating connections or connectivity between safe, low stress, and interesting streets for walking in Urbana.
Well, that sounds like a vision statement.
Yep. I skipped ahead.
I'm actually going to use this to type. That's why I have the keyboard in front of me.
Well,
I'm wondering if you might want to add streets and parks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was my question. Like, what are we trying to connect? But if we're jumping ahead, I don't want to get ahead of it.
Can I ask a question before we move forward? Is everybody okay with the 7 planning pillars that were listed there?
I'd like
Do
to
you
discuss
want
that.
to change any? Do you want to mix them? Do you want to? That's the first question.
Yeah,
Add the leader provide, right?
Well, one of the things I would like for us to do is be recognized as a walk-friendly community. And that is evaluated based on the ease, like bike-friendly communities. So I would, for education, I would like to have education and encouragement.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm not sure what, I mean, in terms of our goals, I really feel like, you know, safety is absolutely the first, highest, always priority. And accessibility and connectivity are really important. I feel like equity really has to be a high priority because of the people who by necessity need to walk for transportation.
These are not listed by priorities.
Right.
At all.
Right.
Yes.
But safety is first.
Yeah, and I think it should be.
Yeah.
Sustainability, walking in and of itself is sustainable. That one just doesn't quite fit here for me. I don't know how that. I mean, encouragement
Yeah, they
helps
want
us.
education and encouragement.
Yeah, I feel like I don't feel like sustainability fits in here. I don't know what other people
Is
do.
it sustainability of the infrastructure, like including
No.
planning for?
It says regarding the natural environment and air quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I somehow want to include the way that the natural environment causes your walk to be more enjoyable. And so health isn't only physical and reduced obesity, but it's also mental health, relaxation, lessened stress levels. So I don't really, I feel like there's an interaction between health and sustainability, but I can't figure it out yet.
That's what I was trying to go with, interesting streets.
Yeah, in the way that human scale, intentionally designed walkways affect the way that you feel.
Yeah, because what having access by walking to those or walking through or having the walking environment offer that
Just because you
gets
can,
us there.
yeah, like I always think like just because I can physically right now walk down University Avenue doesn't mean I want to do it.
Right,
And if I lived in
exactly.
that building across the street, I wouldn't want to run up and down it or walk up and down it. But let's say we put in bioswales with like beautiful planters with like plants, or then suddenly you are mode shifting. You know, then you are encouraging people to want to travel a different way because it lowers their stress. It's more interesting. They learn something. So that's my hobby horse.
I have a concern about the first one in that it's just so weak. I mean, if we reduce the crashes by 1, we've succeeded.
Well, yeah, no, we have to. I think
Yeah,
that's
we'll
just.
reduce
I think
it
that's a
to
very general statement that we
0.
need to. That we'll be building on. I think we're gonna
Exactly.
want-
It's nothing.
Yeah, it's just a
final.
pillar.
It's just an idea.
Yeah, so
Right.
I think we absolutely want to talk about Vision Zero as a safe,
Yeah,
as safety in there. Yeah, so I don't think this wording is being offered as the
No.
Not
goals.
at
I
all.
think it was
Yeah,
just
Examples.
it was just
examples.
descriptive.
So
Yeah.
do we
Not
have
for
a
this
word
plan.
for sustainability incorporating the
Health?
ideas that Kara and Annie talked about? Because it's clear that we want environment in there somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I think sustainability is more of a, if we do everything else right, the result will be a very sustainable city.
Well, maybe it's just not the right word.
It's
Yeah.
not the right
I
word.
do think that, like, it could be incorporated with the health, and I like the intentionally designed grays.
Yeah.
If we could
That's
work
a good
that
I
in there.
too.
And
It
there's
matches with the balanced.
People
Development?
realize the
Health
mental
plan,
health benefits
Mm-mm.
that you get from walking in some places.
No.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, but it pays off huge dividends if you place someone in a place where there's great walking, interesting places to walk to, and it's easy.
I will say two quick things. I also had the thought after we came up with health about not only physical health benefits but mental health, and there was a couple comments about people walking for reflection, and that's why they enjoy places like Meadowbrook Park. We'll have to. A challenge will be creating objectives that are measurable. So that, to me, it doesn't.
Having that data.
Right. I don't want to exclude that necessarily, but we just have to think about how we're going to measure that.
It may be
But-
better to sort of define it under convenience and user friendliness as something that's, do you want to walk in this place, rather than trying to quantify it under a mental health arena where we won't be able to quantify that later.
Or you put it in under health and you make sure that the recommendations focus on making interesting places that you can walk to, like a connected.
I think we're trying to talk about the quality of the pedestrian environment. Is really, as I was thinking
Go
about.
ahead, Jim.
I know.
You're happy here
I
like.
was just gonna ask, Kate, how are you going to use these pillars? I would assume as you're crafting the plan, you're going to use them to make recommendations. I was just one thought. Bill mentioned that sustainability is more of an outcome. A couple of these are like more design oriented, and some of them are more like reason oriented, like why we're doing the plan. So I wasn't sure if the pillars should be more focused on a specific aspect of the upcoming goals and strategies, rather than like Bill mentioned, made me think that with the outcome, it's a weird mix, I guess, of design, reasoning, and outcomes. And maybe they just need to be reworded so that they're all more like either design oriented or justification on why we're doing these strategies and goals.
I think one thing I would like for us to take a look at, there's some pretty strong research that we can pull from the work that Reed Ewing has done, and they've got the 8 qualities of pedestrian and transit-oriented design. And I use that book in the class that I taught, and they go through and talk about the things that they found, and then they've gone through and measured those factors and how many people walk on different streets, and they have found that those factors are very predictive of how many people will be walking in those environments. So I'd like for us to sort of pull that into this discussion. It's things like, they call it imageability, and they define what that means, that it's someplace that's distinct, that people who, it's a destination, enclosure, feeling like you're not just hanging out next to a busy road. You actually feel like you're in a space that has, and then human scale, transparency, that you can see and be seen. You don't feel like you're going to get mugged walking around the next corner. Complexity, there's a lot of stuff going on around you. And coherence, it can't just be chaotic. And then legibility is another one that they talk about, that you can understand and navigate in the environment as well. So it has a little bit to do with wayfinding, but also in terms of the design. And then linkage, that connects to things. So I'd like maybe that sort of background information that we could include in this, and maybe we can share it with everybody here as something for people to consider as we work on this, because what we're really trying to talk about is the context in which people are walking, and that is really important for a whole variety of reasons that include health and sustainability and safety.
Is there a way you can provide that information somehow?
Yep, we sure can. We can pull it out. It's pretty easy to pull out and send.
The other thing I was thinking about is that there may be different criteria. If you have, neighborhood streets, you're going to have different criteria than walking down Vine Street or walking down University. I don't think you would use necessarily the same criteria or measures for both of those.
I think some of the same criteria are
Maybe some of them, but not all of them.
applicable, but it's, you know, your residential street's certainly not going to be as complex as a commercial like Main Street. You know, you're going to have a lot more complexity in that environment than you would on a residential street, for example.
I'm just thinking of improvements that could be made to Vine or University would be different than improvements you would make to
Sure.
Main Street.
Right, so that's a flexible design sensibility. So my question with these pillars is, so these are our goals and objectives? That's the,
No.
That's the theme that will define the goals and objectives, basically. We'll put under safety all the goals and objectives related to safety. And for those objectives, we'll define specific performance measure that will be collecting data to measure that we are moving that objective toward our goal.
Where would a policy be that would be directed at behavioral interventions go in this? For example, the city council considering a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit, which would address everything in one simple, nearly cost-free activity. Where would that kind of thing go?
That would be under
Safety.
safety. That would be under safety.
And would that be possible to actually make a recommendation of a policy measure?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, once you define the goals and objectives, then you start defining strategies in how to achieve those objectives and those goals. But one important element that you have to keep in mind is that we need to have data to support that and to measure the impact.
And then what kind of control do we, the city, have over state highways, for instance?
None.
None.
The power of suggestion.
No.
Yeah, that we really can't change that.
You know, Highway 45's been described as the most dangerous highway in the state.
You can
of
definitely
Illinois
talk, you can
recently.
definitely send letters to your state representatives and they will definitely talk to IDOT. Just FYI, in case you're wondering. They definitely will work with IDOT and it's definitely a powerful tool.
But I think the community being united on a particular direction would be far more
Having the
influential.
plan makes a
Yes.
difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So my only thing with these, my only thing with these pillars, I feel like 7's a lot. I don't know if anyone else feels like 7's a lot.
Well, I think we knocked sustainability off.
Oh, we're down to 6. That's kind of my big, just 7 just seems like a lot. I wish.
Less is better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Less is better.
All right.
Because you can have multiple objectives, so
Well,
you
health and
that
environment.
And there is a lot of overlapping.
Right.
It seems like if we went with like safety, connectivity, equity, and
Education and encouragement is the other
trying to
one.
figure out how to,
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could put that in user friendly.
Well, it's like we're all going for this like interesting, like well-designed. What was you called it? 7 predictive or something? What was the term? I was trying to come up with a word. Intentionally designed. Low stress.
Imageability, yeah. They made that
Imageability.
word
That's
up.
not going to win. Yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend that one be in our plan.
Creativity. Let's just put a creativity.
Well, yeah, because accessibility and connectivity, I think, really do stand alone. But I think convenience and user friendliness and
User experience. UX.
yeah, user experience, user friendliness, and equity. I feel like those do start sort of really melding together somehow.
Well, we don't have a
Quality.
mention of just design.
Yeah.
Features.
Yeah, I think that's where user friendliness
User
really.
friendliness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's features that improve walking or attract people to walk.
Still doesn't
well,
quite sound
The
like
connectivity too.
Interesting.
Connectivity, that's
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like those do
User
start getting us
friendliness
there.
is what user interfaces are always.
Oh, it sounds like
Somehow I
a
just-
computer
What about
term
like-
to you.
It just doesn't,
Okay.
What about
throw
like
me.
quality or intentionally designed infrastructure or like
Mhm.
something along the lines of
Maybe maybe you all can help
Human
with
focus.
coming up with
human
some.
focus?
Here's one
Human
from
focus.
Bellingham, where it says land use and site design, is what they had as a goal, which was employ land use planning and site design requirements that are conducive to pedestrians and result in a mode shift away from
Nice.
automobile trips to walking.
Well, land use has a lot to do with it.
Land use and site design. I like that. You got design in there.
Mhm.
Question about safety. So it looks like the focus is mainly on crashes between pedestrians and vehicles. What about just safety of pedestrians?
Like
We
personal
talked about
safety?
like tripping hazards and stuff like
Oh.
that.
Yeah,
But,
I think bicycle crashes are going to be mentioned too.
Yeah.
In terms of hitting pedestrians.
Right, and then
Oh, yeah.
also as part of the draft, the report that we saw with issues in lighting,
Yeah. Yep.
in the winter with like frozen puddles, slipping
And uncleared
hazards.
sidewalks.
You don't have to clear all the sidewalks because maybe that's not feasible, but having
Oh, we
some
want
kind
to.
of some kind of dim lights or something, so you can avoid stepping on things.
That will be in here.
Could we put like heated things under the sidewalks so when it like
Someone
Yeah, we'll use the
dollars
dollars.
People will absolutely do that. They did it on campus.
Just find the money.
It works great.
really did do it on campus?
On campus, they have some of the, they have some of the
And in front of
Deep tunnels
the.
and
Yeah.
sidewalks. and
City
everything.
building.
It's not super
That's
reliable.
pretty cool.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. We really like to just rely on spraying a little bit of salt onto the ground, because what you said is completely true.
If it
As
gets
soon
too
as it
cold, it'll just
refreezes,
feel metal
then
stone,
you're,
then it'll refreeze, and that'll just be a sheet of ice.
it's just a nice sheet of ice.
All
As
right.
the city of Urbana felt last winter.
So,
So,
I'm
yeah.
hearing we want to combine a couple of things, so maybe convenience and user friendliness with health.
Well, and I think I'm looking to Kuwait staff to help us too with some of the terminology, and maybe I think it might be helpful to, like you looked at what Bellingham has for a pedestrian plan. I think that's because the engineering part of it, that's that design and context that we're trying to. That saying engineering is not very. That doesn't get you there in terms of thinking about the
Yeah,
Urban
design.
design.
Yeah,
Just
design.
It's, what we're doing is intentional.
Yeah,
It's
like I
intentional.
like, yeah, safety, connectivity, land use and site design, equity. It leaves out education and health.
Well, I think we're gonna need education and encouragement in there.
I like site design. I'm not so sure about land use. I think a lot of it's kind of already written in stone, and we've got to deal with what we have. And,
But as new development occurs, we don't want low density,
right.
single use development that is impossible for walking trips. And High Cross Road could do that.
Or strange placements of surface parking lots and
Yep.
sidewalks, so you're like,
Yep.
never.
Well, with the new development, this plan can help
Yes.
with a
Yeah.
developer that, can say, well, we need to put that pedestrian facility in, whereas maybe right now, there's not a
Wait.
overarching set of goals,
For you to use with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Olathe, Kansas, years ago developed standards for pedestrian design and commercial development, and it's still pretty good stuff. But I think there's a lot of good stuff out there now, and this stuff that Reed Ewing has done has been pretty empirically confirmed. So I think we'd be on solid ground in looking at those factors.
So I'm sitting over here and I'm kind of thinking about taking a step back to what Annie was getting at the beginning, which would be just some sort of guiding statement. And I feel like, to me, what I would want to see in a pedestrian system is something that's safe, attractive, and convenient for everybody. And I feel like that's like a pithy, that's just what we want, right? And if there's more stuff, I feel like then you could fill in with these pillars, like you could sort of start guiding things to that. But I think when it comes down to it, that's what we're looking for. So that's just what I'm throwing out there.
Do you need to include accessibility with as big a deal as ADA and four-way is? I feel like that's so much of the
convenient for
focus.
everyone.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
that's convenient.
I think
for
if
all.
we, well, I think we put it safe, attractive, accessible, and convenient. We do want,
Accessibility.
well, we do not want the carpetbagging attorneys to have any grounds for
Yeah.
complaining about our plan, and so if we can have accessible in there, I think that gives us a very strong case. The cities that have
You
been.
can take out convenient.
I was
and
gonna say,
say
No, I
safe-
like convenient.
Yeah,
Safe, attractive, accessible for everyone.
because it can be accessible but not convenient,
Yep,
I think,
Yep,
so.
that's right.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
You can
yeah.
have a very well-designed ramp.
In the back
It's
of
a
the
long
building.
way from the door.
Yeah.
I was gonna say stairs are
Right
convenient
next
for
to the
able-bodied people.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not convenient for someone in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really, you all talk to representatives from the disabled community. We just do not have that voice here, though. I'd really like to engage them.
I can bring them on. I'm saying Drez and.
Yeah. I
We
really.
met with PACE.
Yeah.
We had
They met with
exclusive
PACE,
meeting with
yeah.
PACE.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it might behoove us all to share these with the, those
Title IX
groups.
coordinator.
Yeah, I think, and make sure, say, hey, we want to hear what you think.
Yeah,
Okay.
never a bad idea.
Maybe tying a little to this, Audrey, when you asked about sustainability, and did that relate to like, it sounded to me like we were getting maybe a little towards maintenance, like talking about
Oh, yeah.
the sustainability of the
Yeah.
conditions,
Infrastructure.
infrastructure, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, we can. I just want to throw that out there.
Economic sustainability of the.
Well, maybe that's a city concern and not a master plan concern.
I would say, back on this accessibility thing is, didn't a gentleman die last year who was like the first person to like start like getting cities to start doing accessible infrastructure and.
He was the one that helped this campus
Yeah.
become the most accessible campus in the country. What
So
was his
I think-
name?
Tim Nugent?
Yes, that's right. I always, because that always throws me for a loop when I hear that
They
name.
just did
Yeah, it's a great thing.
documentary.
Yeah, yeah.
I just think it might be, I think like that might be something important to call out in the.
Is our background information.
Just in our background
Yeah.
information as part of our master plan, like this is
Yeah.
baked into Urbana's DNA. This
It
is who
really
we
is.
are as people. We
Yeah.
believe in accessibility. We believe in like
It's been
fair
part
and
of our
just
community
infrastructure
for a
for
long time,
everyone.
for decades.
We believe in mobility for everyone, and this is like, you know, it was started here. Like-
It's passed through the generations.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it started here in Urbana, and it's an idea that has like, you know, that has changed people's lives.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a real guiding almost principle or idea that could really bring the plan together and could make it a thing that we as residents of Urbana can share with each other and say, oh yes, well, we're doing this because, you know, it's baked into our DNA. This is who we are. So that's just, I think.
There's also this age-friendly community.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We could incorporate that into our plan, at least a mention or something that we want to.
Yeah, I was disappointed that that wasn't a bigger part of their discussion about being age-friendly. I just didn't, it seemed to be missing.
We were not invited.
Because when I looked at it, like the Quest survey had nothing in there. I was like, I want to live someplace where I can get around still when I'm old. That to me is age-friendly. That's like the primary thing.
Yeah, what did they talk about if they didn't talk about getting around?
No, they didn't. So
Well,
it
I'm
disengaged
just
me.
wondering what they talked about, not to go off.
Yeah,
on a
it
tangent,
disengaged
but-
me from the
Yeah.
process because that was my primary interest in having age-friendly communities, being able to age in place.
But,
and
but
Beach
what,
Spring.
what is the criteria if it isn't getting around?
Yeah, that's not.
Well, I don't know. I didn't spend a lot of time looking at it after that. But there is a whole process, and there were a lot of things that they've been looking at. I think it was access to care,
Housing
and
choices.
yeah, and services and things like that.
There were some things about getting
How do
in
you
and out
get
of
to those
restaurants.
places?
Exactly.
From the parking lot.
Yeah, from the parking lot to the restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
It's getting around.
All right, let's bring it back in.
Can we focus again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we should get them to incorporate this into theirs.
So what are your goals tonight, Gabe? Do you want us to try to nail down the pillars and
Yes.
try to do you want us to try to come up with any goals and stuff tonight?
I mean, at least the pillars.
At
I don't-
least,
I think from there we can draft goals, and then we'll be bringing that, if you want to start on goals, but that's a little bit
Back to the
more.
health, it seemed like there was some resistance to including mental health because it's not measurable. But obesity and physical activity, I guess you can measure in some sense, and I know there's obesity surveys and stuff out there.
They do
But,
measure
you know,
mental health.
Yeah, there's a
assuming-
lot of.
But, you know, I think,
We're not
yeah,
saying you can't measure it, we're just saying as we develop this, we need to find the performance measures to
Okay.
measure it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
the problem is getting the
in
data
the behavioral
for this
health
community to measure
statistics,
obesity and
there's,
measure
like,
this.
suicide and domestic
Mhm,
violence and
mhm.
things that can indicate mental health.
Mhm.
Yeah, like there's really.
Well, can we,
Now saying that, now taking credit for reduced obesity just because we have good sidewalks, that's, it might be a different, it might have access
Well, yeah,
to
all of
healthy
these
food and
things,
stuff like that might have something to do
Causality
with it,
isn't necessarily provable, but correlation is definitely
are we
there.
gonna have a metric like usage, like count, pedestrian counts?
but
Yes,
that would be more.
we can have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think a measure of our success would obviously
Yeah.
be not just that we think it's
Work
beautiful.
hard.
but that-
The
That
public
more
health
people are
district may
using
have some
Well,
metrics
actually,
for
that we
how
have
they
to
look at
have
mental
counts
health.
on there.
Well, I think we all
regarding
agree that
obesity, no.
safety
Regarding
is
mental-
one of our
mental
pillars.
health,
I don't think
perhaps.
anybody has concerns about
Safety,
safety being
no.
a pillar, right?
The Robert Wood Johnson
Safety, are we okay
Foundation
with
has,
safety? We have to have
Is
agreement.
for the county, but
Yeah.
not for the
All right,
city.
safety, it's in. You got one.
I think they
And
have
where were we
consensus
with
blocks.
accessibility and connectivity? Did we
We have
add
been
to
there.
that?
Yeah,
Just
we
recently
were
got a
saying
grant.
safe can be,
Here, I'll look it
oh
up
yeah,
and see
safe,
the possibility.
accessible.
We got it.
Yeah,
I
we'll
went
take
with
it.
connectivity, but if we wanna do accessibility and connectivity, do those two belong
It
together?
doesn't show.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so accessibility and connectivity.
Okay.
Mhm.
I really like land use and site design.
Well, I definitely want something, I just don't know if that's the right words.
I know. And
What is this?
I'm the oddball out who still wants health, but in regards to including mental health effects of having better environment and that in better site
Right.
design. Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's
Bioswales and
Yeah, like
Whatever
intentionally
happens.
designed or
Shade.
natural environments like
So you want to say health and
Trees.
environment?
I mean, trees
Yeah.
are critical.
yeah,
Really
like really old
environmental
trees that we
protection.
should probably cut down on University
There must be
Avenue.
a
You can
term
start
for
there,
that.
for sure.
Come on, planners, there must be a term for this, human-oriented design kind of thing.
Urban forest.
That's probably the term, and I wouldn't use it.
Yeah, right.
That's the problem. That's the topic.
What did you
The most
really
jargon, the
want?
word I like to use is jargon.
But which one?
Well, how about if we say,
Human-oriented.
can
We
we
could say
say,
human scale design.
can we add equity to accessibility and connectivity? Can we say accessibility, connectivity, and equity? Because this,
Accessibility, connectivity, and equity.
You can, I will say you can have multiple pillars for one goal. That's why we have accessibility and connectivity and then community
Together.
user friendliness.
but you think equity should stand alone?
I think it should.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say
Okay,
so.
all right, that's okay with me.
By the way, I'm sorry to get a little off subject, but don't forget this Friday is Friday Forum and the
Yes.
Oh,
speaker,
that's right.
Yeah.
speaker is speaking on equity of bicycle, or
Yep.
basically encouraging bicycling among African.
Yeah, and I've seen his research is very interesting. He did a webinar.
I saw the
So
webinar too.
YMCA there.
Mhm.
Friday.
Education.
Okay, commercial over. But yeah, I think equity,
Say creative placemaking, but I don't think that's.
There's something missing. I mean, when you think of the roads of historic Urbana before cars, I don't have any idea how we decided 30 miles an hour was a human scale thing to do in a city when before a horse and buggy. You know, these streets were designed for horse and buggies and people, basically. And things
Of course,
weren't
those weren't
going
very safe
faster
either.
than- yeah, well, but
Lots of people got run over by horses and buggies.
Not really to the same extent. I mean, I think children played in the streets.
Oh, sure,
In
yeah,
the
streets
past.
were
The
shared
streets were
spaces.
community
Mhm.
spaces.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And vehicles were, getting permission to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all switched around and not to great benefit, I don't think.
Well, just so we've got safety, accessibility, and connectivity, and equity. We've agreed on those three.
Yeah.
What's under this new?
Look at
I've
those
got five here.
Five
Okay,
there.
okay, here we go. All right. I think we take site out. People won't know what the heck that means anyway. I think if we say land use and design, take site out. That's so planner jargony. Where
Well, isn't site use and design pretty jargony?
yeah, it is.
It's the truth.
Land use and design. I think people understand what land use is.
For land development, maybe?
I mean,
Land
it just
use to
doesn't
me
know
is
what it
design.
means in this context. Are we going to tell people they can't do retail here, or they?
No,
No.
No,
No,
we're
that's
gonna
the
tell
zoning
people they
officer.
can't do giant, disconnected, single-use development that you can't walk to.
Yeah.
With like 1,000 parking spaces.
Yeah.
1,000 parking spaces.
Wow.
For only
I mean,
20%
can we
capacity.
can we be that? That's
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of-
Character and
Yes, we
quality
can.
of
Something
Quality
else.
of place.
Totally can. You can put
Build
them in
character
for-
and quality of place.
Maybe we should switch
Ooh, I
that
like
around
it.
and say design and land use, because design is really what people are most interested in that I'm hearing.
So for land use, is it more designing around existing like established land use plans, or is it the other way around? I'm still not.
Well,
that's
it's all
what,
of- it's
that's
both.
what bothers me about it. I think land use to me is zoning, and it's not like we're going to try to change zoning.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't
but
quite.
Some of the zoning, like in some commercial districts, they may not allow residential, and there's no reason
Right.
why you couldn't allow upper story residential in some
Exactly.
commercial. So like, you could, so a policy or strategy could be look at your zoning ordinance to,
Yes.
Address.
Yeah,
Yes.
address regulations that allow more flexible land uses.
Absolutely. We need to look at our zoning subdivision regs and see if they are impeding or accomplishing these goals.
Yes.
Agreed.
And a lot of communities have maximum parking requirements, so that'd be something else that could be looked at.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I feel like that doesn't need to stand on its own as a pillar, talking about land use, but some of those strategies could fall under something like convenience or accessibility and connectivity, right? Because if you design your land uses better, it's going to be more connected, more accessible. More
I think that the basic word we're trying to get at is attractive there.
That's a
Design
more-
and
that's a my vision
yes,
statement,
I
right?
mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that attractive is not that attractive of a word. but I think that's what we're trying to
Alphasaurus
get at.
attractive. We'll see what that gets us. I'm on it right now. This is
Google Images.
Because we're just missing that here.
appealing, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Intentional is, not bad. I mean, it's,
I like
except that
I
a lot
like
of
that
times
intentional
people have
design.
intentionally made a mess.
Intentional design.
I like intentional design. I think that's nice.
Yeah.
Appealing.
For land use, I think
Woke
Adorable.
design.
some things. I don't think some
Adorable.
things we might not be
Alluring.
able to really influence or change. Like along Lincoln, Lincoln is not walkable in my opinion. The traffic is fast. It's loud. There's no trees. But aren't there some areas there now designated like higher density residential areas, like by Nevada and like South, those couple corners, and there's mainly going to be student housing, so you're going to have much higher pedestrian traffic going across Lincoln and even along Lincoln, like going up to maybe engineering side or the other areas. So it might be easier to design the roads around those higher density areas than to try and change the zoning to something else.
I want us to talk about zoning too. I think it's important for us to talk about land use. Now, how we fit that in here is,
It's important for those developments to kind of be well made and well placed, especially around that road, especially while we're looking at encouraging and making it
I wonder if we could title it convenience and connectivity and have all of that underneath that instead.
When you
I like
talk
that
about
better than
Lincoln
user
Avenue, for
friendliness.
example, I think if it just had trees, it would suddenly change from, and if the speed limit was lower. Those two things
trees
make
might
it
even-
make it accessible, attractive,
I
and
think trees might
walkable.
even slow down the cars even.
Yeah, I
with-
think even the
with-
cars,
without
they
having
do
to
take
change the
a
sign.
hint.
That is
Yeah.
science there. It is true, they do.
Uh-huh.
Engaging and inviting. I
Inviting.
love it.
I like
I like
inviting.
that. Not
Yes,
Japanese.
that's good.
Thesaurus. That's why we pay you the big bucks.
I think that really hits it.
And we've talked a lot about being intentional about things too. So
Intentionally inviting. I can Google intentional.
well, Seattle has as their pillar safety, equity, vibrancy. They use the word vibrancy. And health. So those were, they actually had, was that 4?
Vibrant is perfect because it brings in the idea of living.
Yes, yes.
Trees.
Vibrancy.
It's okay. They probably stole it from somebody else too.
You're sitting around with Google too.
I'm always in favor of learning from other people.
All right, so where are we
As
at?
well.
I feel like we're playing this like complex
Change
game.
design and land use for vibrancy.
All right.
Playing Scrabble.
Land or
What about
design
those
and land use.
five?
Yep.
Where are we at?
For accessibility and equity, they kind of feel redundant. I mean, equity is very important, obviously, but I feel one of them can fall under the other. So,
Well, so
if you have higher accessibility and everyone can access it and go wherever they want, could you say it's equitable?
Yeah, I mean, you could have accessibility in like upper income areas that wouldn't necessarily target the equity issue, I would think. So I think it is kind of important to have them separate.
Equity,
Yeah.
because it's kind of equity of neighborhoods.
Plus,
Yeah.
you're going to develop sub-goals.
I
If
want to
you
keep
roll it in, then it'll just be a small portion.
So you would have more focus on it as its own
Yes.
goal.
I mean, in an ideal world, we would need a separate.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, right. But yeah. Like, yeah, the thing about like equity is like University Avenue, that street. If it were in a different part of the city of Urbana, a highway would be, you know, they would actually be getting robust, interesting, vibrant infrastructure. But because, you know, yeah.
University Avenue is equitably affordable for all users.
Yes, I agree with you. Or my car, yeah, I know when you park in your car and you're like, oh god.
It's worse to have to cross it.
Yeah, no, you're right. What about education and encouragement? We're trying to figure out where do we put mental health, obesity, like the health
Physical
concerns that we
education.
have, physical education.
Do you change it to
That we have
It'll
in
go
all
into
the
check
population.
And the other
I know, but
question I have
then when
is
you
like,
talk about putting
would it be
obesity under
equity or
vibrancy,
equity?
it's like
Vibrancy or vibrant?
No, because
I
I
like
think it
vibrant.
does go.
Well, then you'd have to change equity to equitable.
I like equity.
You have
And
to
then
say,
safety to safety.
Because obesity
Safety
doesn't
to
have
safe.
to be specifically
Action.
about
That's
Yeah.
that's the
weight
point.
as much
Yeah.
as
That's the
fitness
result
and
of
health
doing
and
something.
vibrant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a culture of
No,
Yeah,
I like
of
equity,
moving,
safety,
of
vibrancy.
getting out, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about
Vibrancy
action words.
suggests health.
You mean
Yeah.
like safe?
So you have to back away from the
That's right.
obesity as one thing
Convenience.
and
See,
Right.
the over.
It's because of
Obesity
social
is the
media.
consequence of
Because of
not
social media.
walking.
Of not being
It's an
vibrant.
outcome.
No being
Yeah.
active.
Yeah.
It's an outcome
Yeah.
instead of being a pillar
Yeah.
itself.
That's like.
Yeah.
I know.
Does your work
It actually kind of bothers me.
Does your work help in the vibrancy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Right.
I think so.
We can
Yeah.
mention it
Does your
as
work fit
before,
the title
but
somehow?
We can't do
Oh,
measurable.
my
goals.
colleagues.
there's obesity.
Use the Google.
You what?
I
You
really
lost
see
1
that.
pound. You what? You lost 1 pound.
Use
Like,
a
Every time I walked, I lost a pound. I'd walk
Yes.
even more.
Yeah.
All right, so it should, I mean, health should be basically part of vibrancy. It's very hard to
Can
be
you guys
vibrant without
think about that
something.
and try to work
Yeah.
health
Yeah.
into vibrancy somehow
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
with some wording?
And so one of the things that we're also discussing is maybe talking about it as sort of an initial framework for the plan and talking about how all pedestrian activity is going to positively impact health, because there's existing
Yes.
research that where we can say these things are linked, but we don't necessarily have the data to do measurable goals. So we'd like to talk about that as sort of, you know, one of the visions for the plan instead of one of the like measurable goals.
Well,
for the
safety
plan.
is part of health.
Yeah.
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 All of
exactly.
these
But
things.
The
that's
people who are
Yeah.
run over and killed and the
Yeah.
people who are hit and injured, these are health.
Yeah.
This is health.
But
Right,
I
it's
think,
not
I
just
think
fatal,
it's
it's
possible
severe
to call
crashes.
those two different things, because you could be just
Yeah.
tremendously healthy and boom, you're dead.
Accidents.
You know, you
But
could be
the-
this biggest road user, sidewalk
Exactly.
user in the world, and you,
But that's
You can
why
die.
Yeah.
safety
Yeah.
is a big part
pretty
of
sure
health,
they
is
do that.
because
Yeah.
if you're not safe, you
True.
can't be healthy.
Yeah, and if you're feeling
But
stressed
I think
out
it's
because
somewhat
the streets are
separate.
stressful, you're not healthy.
Because the public health department has come to recognize that this is a very important health issue. And not just because of inactivity, but because of
Yeah.
fatalities and injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And if
one
we're-
thing I'm interested in is, what about community, under accessibility and connectivity? I mean, right now, University Avenue is this border, this river of death between between Central Urbana and the North End. And it could be community making instead
Yes,
of
it could be
separated.
a creative and
Right now,
interesting and
your
economically
existing-
vibrant place.
Your
Yes.
existing conditions had a lot of people asking to go to Crystal Lake, but then all of your walking reports, none of them were at Crystal Lake. Not, I mean, there was
Can't
a
get there.
bazillion, yeah, you can
Because
get
they want
there.
to go, but they can't. Or they
Yeah.
don't
Kind of
feel
It's like a
comfortable.
foreign
Connectivity,
country
though.
to get
Mhm.
across University
Yeah.
Avenue, which
It's kind of a
Connected
catch-22, because in the
destinations,
argue for
neighborhoods.
better crossings
why you
across
shouldn't.
University, they point to the stats, say, well, nobody's
Crystal Lake
going there.
crossing.
Yes.
Mhm.
You don't have the,
Yeah.
you don't have the pedestrian traffic.
Yes, well, my answer to that is they wouldn't go there if there weren't a road either, or if there were a really bad road. So that argument just doesn't, it's never flown with me.
Is there an agreement on all those 5 pillars?
Mhm.
What was the question?
Everybody agree that those are the 5
Oh.
pillars that we want to work with.
I think health is kind of being pushed aside here. Under vibrancy, you can include like psychological or mental health. You know, how the atmosphere of the areas are affecting you and how it makes you feel. But physical health, like obesity, is maybe something else like that you can maybe measure. Or with vibrancy, you can plant lots of trees, but it's not going to make people lose weight.
The problem is, how do you make obesity? Obesity is an outcome of walking.
It's a culture of health that's promoted by, by being vibrant, by being a vibrant location.
Yeah.
And also,
An entire culture, including
For
aesthetic,
pedestrian,
mental.
Yeah, like when you have the
physical.
ability to train for a marathon without feeling like a car is going to run you over, and you start seeing other people that like, you're like, what are you doing? That's crazy. Then you start training for a marathon, and you realize you're crazy like those people.
Sounds like we've been there, Ann.
yeah.
Know nothing about this.
I mean, right now you stand on the brink of University Avenue, poised to cross it like Frogger. Right? You feel incredibly.
I was so excited. No, like my problem, like when I
exposed.
moved here, I was like so excited. I was like, I'm gonna run in Meadowbrook. I'm gonna like, I had like this whole like thing like mapped out that I would run around like Meadowbrook, like I like would be Meadowbrook, but then would also be Crystal Lake, and I was like, wow, I could get like this like XYZ mile run in, and then I was like, oh, forget that. Like,
Yeah.
it's just moronic. I do have a question though about education and encouragement, Cynthia. That, how do you see that being fleshed out, and why is that important?
Well, I think that we have to provide information both to people who are pedestrians, people who are drivers, and people who are cyclists about sharing the space safely. And that is critically important that we have that in there. And encouragement then encompasses a whole nother group, I mean, it will overlap with some of the other things like vibrancy.
Does it have to do with health? Does that education, encouragement, does that have anything to do with health or not really?
Well, I'd certainly
Could we work it in
encouragement,
somehow?
yeah, certainly encouragement could revolve around encouraging people to be active because it improves their health, and that's something we know that Carl and other major health providers are working on. We do have a program right now. It's only operating through the park districts, but the kids who come in to the CU Public Health District that are considered overweight or obese are given a prescription for physical activity and then provided with coupons to take a class, go to the park districts. So there's that's an encouragement strategy that impacts health. And they are trying to do before and after measures to see whether it's having any impact.
I'm trying to just see if encouragement is the right word. That's my other, that's what, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just.
Well, I mean, it's part of how we measure with the
Like
bike plan and.
I would say advocacy or you guys are saying outreach.
There's the 5 E's.
I think
That's
it's
one
part
of
of the
them.
5 E's.
It's pretty
It's
widely
very
accepted.
central.
All right.
Yeah,
We're trying to get the walking community designation.
They're the same 5 E's for bicycle as they are for pedestrians?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah. If you read them, you'd be like, yeah.
That seems to me more like strategies you use to get to your
Yeah.
Yeah,
target.
I kind of thought that.
And not
It's like a
so much
14
like one of the overarching themes you want to go with. To me, it just doesn't.
Yeah,
seem
so
to fit.
it could fall under safety, educate car drivers on how to safely interact with pedestrians.
And educate pedestrians on how to avoid cars.
Right.
Don't leave the house.
And things like wearing reflective material at night, maybe even those little blinky
Talking
lights
on
and
your
stuff
cell
like
phones.
that. There's some education to do.
Letting people know
There
what's
is
out there.
overlap in all
Park
of it.
district.
Exactly.
Difficult
Kickapoo
to
rail
say.
trail.
Rigorous on
I think
crosswalks,
that's part of it.
stop lines.
But I feel like that education and encouragement could go under some of the other things. Like there could be strategies for those that fit under the other.
Or is the pillar health and then education and encouragement is a bullet point under health?
I think education and outreach or whatever it is can be split under safety and health. So if you put health as a main one, and then you can put education under health, for the promoting active lifestyle and stuff like that. But then you can take the other half of that and put it under safety about educating cyclists on, hey, stop at a stop sign. Here's the things you can do to prevent accidents. So something like that maybe.
My one comment about grouping education and encouragement under other things, Cynthia's point was that you're going for this certification, and sometimes just calling those things out in grant applications and being able to say we have this as a pillar. So it may seem like it can be grouped, but that's just like one thing.
That's a good point, actually. That's a really
Super
good point.
agree.
Yeah, they love that.
Already having it highlighted there for them.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they define the 5 E's, and usually what's the definition of the 5 E's for grant application, for all that, they look at those elements in your plan.
So what are the other 3 E's?
Engineering, enforcement, and evaluation.
Okay,
Yeah, and I did not put those.
that's fine.
in here.
I just wanted to know what they were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't
I
wanna-
think they're important for us to include in some of the others.
I feel like all those 5 E's though can fit into some of the other ones, like enforcement that
Safety.
definitely affects safety.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Engineering,
Yeah.
that's everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
This
Craig?
is all.
Okay, anybody object to any of these 5? Everybody comfortable with going with these 5 for now? So what's the next step?
Well, Kevin, were you objecting to the education enforcement as one of the pillars?
I'm not a member of BPAC.
Oh.
I am just giving.
Yes, correct. Sorry.
I'm just giving
No, it's okay. It's
I'm
big
just giving my
distinctions.
opinion. Like I think there are. I don't want to confuse sort of the overarching targets with the strategies that are used to get to those targets. Like, I don't want to mix them up in.
That's true.
If I were a
Education
member.
and encouragement are not a goal, they're a strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be comfortable if we took education, enforcement, or encouragement.
Encouragement
Sorry.
is such a big
I
difference.
can't reach that
Well,
far
I
away.
mean,
Yeah.
I could see
I
that
already increased the
as
size,
a
but I
goal
can
to
increase
have
it more.
Okay, good.
to close streets and have community parties,
I
and that's our
understand.
goal. So we have it there because we provide education and encouragement during those events.
Well, if we take it out, we include it under the other, so we can do that. And then we would have the 4, and that's a good, and they're very general, overall. So, okay.
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
I can look
Okay.
at that.
Okay.
Let me just- oh,
It's
To
started
add,
like
yeah.
8,
Okay,
4.
okay.
And we're okay without not having health in there. Are people okay with that?
Well, it's under vibrancy.
Yeah,
I see it.
We're gonna
It's not
have
exact.
it in there. You guys just need to come up with some wording for us.
Yeah, there's-
we're not
that's-
For
gonna-
vibrancy and health.
Right.
Vibrancy.
Yeah.
We're at the
I mean,
beginning of this.
Vibrancy is also including environmental issues, so if it's that important that we should have it separate. Because it's also including the attractiveness of the environment.
And then does the tense of the word matter? Does accessible and connective, like equitable, safe, and vibrant? Or is the standard format of these things more vibrancy, safety, equity, accessible, and connectivity? Do you see the difference in
Yes.
language?
So,
Yeah.
as a planner, I'll say that most planning documents are very passive,
Okay.
but I would vote for not passive.
Well, these
I
are,
want
these are
equity,
pillars.
safety, and vibrancy.
Yeah, these are pillars,
Yeah.
so
They're
I think
pillars,
pillars
not-
need to
yes.
be passive.
All right.
So that they can stand.
Yeah, that was more, yeah, I don't really, these are not things I understand. I don't
Okay.
understand your complicated ways. Sorry, your problems.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
We will need from you ideas about goals for each of those pillars, and you can send those to us. Goals and objective. Keep in mind when you are writing objective that they need to be SMART. That means that they have to be quantifiable and they have to have an end date, kind of. Then if you send that information to us, we'll start organizing them and we'll prepare a draft that we'll send to you with the information from everybody and whatever else we add into it. That you have a draft that we can go and discuss again.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
I have a question. So if we have a goal that we want to increase how many people walk, where would we put it under these pillars?
You have to decide.
Well, that's why I'm thinking of that, because that's critically important, and that's something that we want to do. So I'm wondering if we have all the pillars that we need.
Maybe I'd say connectivity.
Maybe you approach it with, the next step is looking at your primary things that you want to obtain.
Make sure it's all there.
And
If
then
we
go
need to go
back.
back and add a pillar later, we could.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yep.
Probably you can define that as a vision. The vision of the plan is increase the number of people walking in the community.
Yep. Yep.
And then from there, then you define the different goals. To get there, then we need to provide the infrastructure. We need to make the infrastructure more attractive. We need to provide the infrastructure
Right.
to all the socioeconomic groups in the community and those kind of things. But that's your vision, to increase the number of people walking in the community.
Well, I wonder if we should say transportation equity.
Equitable transportation?
I think it's just
Equity.
equitable.
So we want equity between neighborhoods, kind of. Because I think the buses are maybe be transportation equity.
Well, access to the buses is part of the pedestrian environment.
All I'll say is that these are pretty easy, quick words to grasp onto when you're trying to describe not only the goals and objectives, but the plan itself. And, you know, as we go along with the goal setting process, we'll see where everything fits and if another pillar needs to be added or something needs to be changed. But
That works.
So then once we get the goals and objectives, how does this eventually translate into a map? Don't we end up with a map?
That's recommendations.
That's recommendations.
Yeah.
That's the recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way you think.
We like maps too.
Okay, so
You have the map.
Yes.
At the end, you'll have a map
Yes.
with the
as the
recommendation.
timeline goes, are you going to help us do the goals and objectives? Do you want us to work on those at our next couple of meetings, and then get back together?
Probably once we get, as I said, we get the input from everybody, we'll start organizing them. And if we feel like we need to create a new pillar, we'll add that pillar, or we have to create a vision, we'll add that, and send all that to you for your review. And then if you want to get together again to discuss them, we can do that.
I think we need a time frame for giving you the input.
And that's my next step. How much time do you need for creating goals and objectives?
I mean, for sending our thoughts to you.
So are we good? I'm still confused in that. Are we going to do that as a group or just individually send you goals and objectives? It's up to-
Probably individually. If you want to get together and do it
Could we discuss
together,
at our
you
next
can do
meeting?
that.
Yeah, the meeting on
Would that
Tuesday, right?
be-
You'll be here forever doing that.
Yeah, I think we really should send them to them and let them put it together, and they could come back to us and say, here's what we heard from all of you.
Yeah,
And
considering we took 2 hours to come up with 4
Yeah.
bullet points.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's because we were reduced.
They are very good bullet points, but we need more bullet
No, I
points
think-
under
yeah, I
each
think we
of
need-
those. So.
If we get together to discuss goals and objectives, like from scratch, we'll be here
forever.
forever.
Okay.
For
I've been
months.
there and done
So
that. You don't wanna
everybody,
do that.
start thinking about what you're going to send them.
Do we
as far
need
as
2
goals and
weeks?
objectives.
That's what.
That's my
Liz
question. How much
much
time do you
do we
need?
want to give her our thoughts?
2 weeks?
2 weeks sounds great.
I'm just thinking, we can look at your present conditions draft, your existing conditions
Uh-huh.
draft, and identify the places that these things are not being met, and then send you our suggestions on how that would be fixed.
My other suggestion is you can look at the Urbana Bicycle Master Plan. That's the latest document that we produce, and you can see their ideas about goals and objectives and all that. There is a chapter just about goals and objectives.
Oh, okay.
It's just
Yeah.
The
So if
plan
we
is
sent
set.
this to you in 2 weeks, what would that mean for the following meeting? You would have about 2 weeks till the, no, you'd have 3 weeks
We have
until the
meeting
next
week,
meeting.
so.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess that would be, how much time do you need to?
it will depend on the input that we receive. Then there is no guarantee that in
How
3
much
weeks
stuff
we'll
we
have
send 'em.
everything processed. Then we'll let you know. It will depend on how much input we get
Because
from
that
you.
would be the
Because everybody will be
November
like
meeting.
everywhere. Then
Sorry,
So we're probably
And
talking at our December meeting.
perhaps.
Probably December, yeah.
Probably December.
Hmm.
If you're gonna do that, then maybe more than 2 weeks.
Maybe more. I'd hate to make it too long because then we're about to put
Appropriate.
it off.
The problem is that if you ask for more time, then you will forget all
Yeah,
this discussion
yeah,
and will be
yeah.
like,
Let's shoot for 2 weeks.
try to
with-
do 2 weeks.
2 weeks with an automatic 5-day extension.
Can you
A reminder at our meeting next
Expected.
week that we only have
Well,
one
Then
meeting
will
left.
be
Yes.
So
when.
There you go.
So will you be able to send us the summary notes so that we have this to?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. If you could send us some notes and just say, these are the, 1, 2, blah, 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 this is it. Could you send us this information back? If I have an email in my inbox asking me for that information, I will reply to it. If I don't get that email, okay.
How about we set it for October 27th, which would be 2
That works.
Yep. just
Friday.
27th.
Any deadline.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
2 weeks
Deadline
plus
on
5 days.
Plus 5 days if you
Yeah.
fill what you want.
October 27th. At the end of the email, you'll have in red, bold, due by October 27th.
Be like an
No
animated
extensions.
GIF.
Charlie, come up with the clock.
Calm down. Calm down.
Does anybody else have anything else? Remember, we meet next week, same time, different place downstairs.
Yeah, I didn't realize we're meeting next week.
And Friday forum on Friday. Anybody else have any quick announcements before we?
The bike census is tomorrow!
Bike census.
My gosh, the graduate college seemed to have put a tweet up about that.
Oh my goodness! And you're gonna be there, and you're gonna be there, and you're gonna be there, and I love you guys so much. I love you all very much.
I have a ride
I guess you're
board
busy.
meeting, so I will not be there.
Gabe, can you send
Let's
those
hope for
to
good
Brad?
weather.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I'll forward it
Well,
to
get
the-
your rain
Okay.
I
coat
think
out.
it's supposed to be.
Okay.
I think it's supposed to be decent and just kind of cloudy and cold.
It's early
Like
enough
60
that they should
degrees.
have information until they know who the.
No,
No,
I'm
we're
gonna
counting
send it
park-
out to the
Yeah.
commissioners.
I'll be sure to write.
Open meeting.
So you take all of your bikes out and park them where you want people to
Violation.
count them.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all. We're adjourned.
Thanks.